Hey, how's it going? This is Joe Intel, and today I'm going to be taking a quick look at the SVS SB-3000. So before we get into it, I'd like to thank my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to do this. It helps me make these videos and to do some of the stuff that I do behind the scenes and podcasts, things like that. So once again, if you're not a Patreon supporter, consider doing so. And now a word from our sponsor, Jay from the SVS Hooligans Club. What's up, guys? So right here I have the SVS SB-3000. I used to have 3 10-inch JLW6s in the back of my car before, and so I was curious to see how this would perform in this minivan. I'm using a super long RCA cable by SVS. I didn't even know these guys made RCA cables, but this is pretty nice. I also have a long power cable, so I'm going to be plugging this in directly to the wall. No power inverter. Alright, plug this right in here. Alright, so plug everything back up. Low frequency, volume on max. Alright, so it is quite hot in here, but yeah, I think it sounds pretty good considering it's a home theater sub and we're using it here in the van. And so although I wouldn't say it's louder than the 3 JLs that I had that took up the whole trunk, but for one 13-inch in a sealed enclosure, I think that it's more than enough. I wish the SVS would make some car subs maybe, I don't know. Alright, so this is not going to be a technical video. I know a lot of times I do technical stuff. I do measurements. I will do some measurements, but I'm not going to get into it as much as I usually do, just because I felt like doing something a little bit different this time, which is kind of just giving you my own personal experience with the SB-3000. Now previously SVS has sent me the SB-2000 to review, and I was really impressed with that. You can see how they measured compared to some of the other subs in my subwoofer shootout video. I'll link to that in the description. So SVS did send me this free for review, and so thank you to SVS for that. As you can tell, I got the gloss black one. This one I think is beautiful. It is a fingerprint magnet, so be careful of that if you want to keep it clean. You're gonna have to wipe this down on a regular basis if you're constantly touching it. As far as the frequency response measurement, it does what it claims. They claim down to 18 Hertz, and for my measurements, it looks very flat down to 18 Hertz. And so that's something that I find is very important when it comes to subwoofers that a lot of people aren't really looking at when it comes to the specs of a subwoofer, which is how flat it is across the frequency where you're going to be crossing it over. Your main speakers shouldn't have a bunch of peaks and valleys. It should also measure flat. You have some good speakers and they do measure flat. You want the sub to cross over and also continue being flat. You don't want to have a huge mountain here. So most people are going to cross over between 80 and 120 Hertz. And so if the subwoofer is not flat in that region, let's say it is peaky and it's flat maybe there and then it starts going up, what you'll notice is the bass seems unnatural or boomy, or what some people call not musical. That wasn't even all the way up. So these are flat across the frequency response and all the way down to about 20 Hertz where they start to roll off slightly down to 18 Hertz. And I think that that's one of the most important things that's overlooked, because that's what's going to determine the coherence and how the subwoofer integrates with the rest of the system. Basically what you're doing is you're taking 2 speakers and you're trying to get them to work together. So that's what the SVS does really well. Now I've seen some other subwoofers from other companies and they also claim below 20 Hertz, even further down than that. One thing I did notice about those is the subwoofer enclosures for those are pretty big. Whereas the SVS SB-3000 and SB-2000 and the other sealed SB-1000, they're relatively small. So I was very surprised about that. I was expecting to see a huge subwoofer, although SVS does make the PB16 Ultra. That thing is pretty huge. These are pretty compact and they're able to perform as if they were much bigger speakers. So this one is a sealed one. A lot of times people go for a sealed one if they're into music, or ported if they're going to be using for home theater. Now, in my case, what I would say is I can understand that mentality, that philosophy, if you're going to be using the subwoofer in a larger room, right? Because you're going to need more output, and ported enclosures do give you more output. But at the same time, those enclosures are also bigger. If you're in a smaller room, I feel like the sealed SB-3000 is more than enough output. So I tested it in a few places. One of them was this large rehearsal studio. I would say this is about and so it's a large room, and I was not able to pressurize the entire room, but enough to start shaking stuff all over the place in that room. One thing that I thought was funny is that they did have a drum kit here, and so I put this next to the kick drum to see what would happen, and as you can tell, it was shaking the kick drum. I also decided that it would be fun to test this in a vehicle. So yeah, that was quite an experience. I've heard louder in a vehicle, but nowadays I wouldn't want anything louder than that. Already with the amount of bass that this was putting out, the front mirror wouldn't stay still. It kept tilting down every few seconds, so I'd have to keep rearranging it. So this is a 13-inch woofer. You can see all the specs on their website, and I'd encourage you to do that because there are a lot of things there as far as how the amplifier works, type of amplifier. It's Class D, it's 800 watts. The main difference that I noticed between this one and the SB-2000 is that this one does have the ability to control it via the app, and I thought that was really cool. It uses Bluetooth to make fine adjustments, and you wouldn't think that that would be extremely useful, except for the fact that when you're adjusting the subwoofer, it's much easier to do it sitting at your seat versus having to walk back and forth and try to figure out the best phase response or the best volume for it. Something to keep in mind. You're able to set some presets on here for music, movies, games, etc. The other thing is that this does have DSP control, meaning that you can use a parametric EQ to adjust the frequency response. And this was handy for me. I had this and I was showing this subwoofer at the show, and the hotel rooms are never the optimal places for pretty much any speaker. So what I was able to do is I was able to take measurements with my UMic 1 using REW, and I was able to take a frequency response of the subwoofer, and from there I could make a correction profile that I was able to put into the subwoofer itself. So that was kind of handy because I didn't have a receiver where the receiver would do all that for me, or a mini DSP. So I was able to do all the correction on the sub itself, so that was really handy. I mean, there's not much else I can say. There's a reason why SVS is popular, and it's this: they make consistently good products. You're able to try out their products, and if you don't like it, you can send it back. They have a frequency response that goes down to 20 hertz and below for most of their subs. They're flat across their entire range, which means they sound musical. Basically, they're not peaky. They're as accurate as you can get for a subwoofer. I think they're using some DSP trickery, but I'm fine with that, especially for subwoofers. They have more than enough output because of their driver design and their sledge amplifiers. They offer sealed enclosures that are not very large, that have a high spouse acceptance factor. They have features like being able to control it with your phone. Very cool. And the other thing is that they have a wide range of products. They have products that are inexpensive, so if you're on a budget, you can start there and slowly move up to some of their higher end offerings. But every step of the way, I feel like their products offer very good value. There's not very much bad to say about this thing. If I had to nitpick, I would say, I don't know. I wish that their parametric EQ on the app had more than 3 filters. They're very competitive price-wise, but I always wish that a product could be less expensive so more people can have access to it. But again, they have a part of their website that offers B stock, and so you can find some deals there too. It's really tough to say anything bad about SVS. I really like what those guys at SVS are doing. I feel like they're pushing this industry forward, attracting the younger generation, attracting home theater enthusiasts, 2-channel audio enthusiasts, and so thank you, shout out to SVS. I'll leave a link in the description for the SVS SB-3000 as well as the SB-2000. Anyway, I hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell to be notified when I upload new videos or when I stream live. Anyway, that's it. Take care. Bye-bye.